All right. Welcome back to Right on the Edge. This is Derek with some right reactions to this stuff. So I just found out that uh Jeepers Creepers the movie, which is one of the first horror movies to ever actually scare me for some reason, like as a kid, I wasn't scared of Chucky or any of these other like cheesy horror movies, but Jeepers Creepers got me. It was something about that movie really creeped me out. And I just found out, and I'm late to the party, of course. But I just found out that it was based on a real story. So I kind of wanted to hear the real story. And I'm sure other people would too.
Today's video is sponsored by Keeps. For the longest time, hair loss has been something that most
Darn.
guys just simply had to deal with. Sure, there were the
I will make you guys watch that. I don't want to watch it.
It was a relaxing Easter Sunday afternoon as Ray and Marie Thornton were driving in Coldwater, Michigan. The brother and sister were enjoying the peaceful ride and had been playing a game of making up words and phrases from the license plates of cars passing by. As Ray turned
As you
onto
do.
Snow Perry Road, a loud rumbling sound became louder by the second, and suddenly an older model green van sped past them. Figuring that it was simply someone in a rush, the brother and sister paid it little mind. That was until they passed an old schoolhouse a couple miles up the road, and Marie witnessed something that shocked her to her core. Marie witnessed a man that was walking towards the schoolhouse carrying
I will say this. No one would ever see that anymore because we'd all be on our phones, me included. Real boomer take, but this murder wouldn't be solved today because we'd be like,
what looked like a white sheet covered in blood. Ray continued on driving, and as they passed the schoolhouse, they both saw the exact same van that had sped past them minutes earlier. Ray and Marie began debating on what they needed to do. Should they call the police? Should they turn back around? Or should they stay out of it and not end up like victims in a horror movie? Before they could figure out what to do, the same van that was seen at the schoolhouse was now closely approaching their rearview mirror. The van began gaining speed, and before they knew it, it was right behind them, keeping speed and being mere inches from their bumper. For over 2 miles,
so it's just like the opening scene from Jeepers Creepers where they pass the body being dumped and then it starts to chase them down.
the van stayed like this, almost as if the driver was going to follow them wherever they went. Marie was trying to remember the license plate from the van when it originally passed them. All she could remember was that it started with the letters G and Z.
Ooh.
Then suddenly, the van took a sharp turn down a side road. Ray and Marie knew that something was very wrong here and decided that they needed to find out the van's plate and report it to the police.
So creepy, man.
They decided to turn around and see if they could locate the van and get the information from a distance. Shortly after making their way back the way they came, they soon spotted the van, with both doors open and a man kneeling behind it. To their shock, they saw what appeared to be a man taking off the license plate. But the even scarier thing that Ray and Marie both noticed was that the inside of the passenger door was covered in blood. Not wanting to stick around any longer and being unable to get the plate information, Ray and Marie figured the next best thing to do would be to go back to the schoolhouse and see if they could find the sheet, or potentially what was responsible for the bloodstains on it. They made it back to the schoolhouse and began to quickly search the area. Within a few minutes, Marie found, stuffed inside a small animal hole, the bloody sheet.
Jeez, man. I got sucked into that story for a second. Oh, man. I feel bad for these kids.
Marie and Ray ran.
But also, how absolutely brave of them to go back and search for that.
Back to their car and quickly left to go alert police of what they found. For what was supposed to be a peaceful and relaxing Sunday for Ray and Marie Thornton quickly turned into a nightmare scenario that had found them fearful of hearing the familiar rumblings of a speeding van.
Yeah, dude, that'd be terrible.
Unknown to them at the time, but the Thorntons had just encountered Dennis Depew and had witnessed the lengths that he had gone to keep control over his family.
Ooh. Holy shit.
As Ray and Mary were speeding to alert the police of their discovery, at the same time a phone call was being made to the same police department from
Good
the
job,
frantic
Ray.
daughter of
Good
Dennis.
job.
Jennifer Depew was calling to report that her father had assaulted her mother, Marilyn, whom had recently divorced Dennis, and he was seen carrying her to his van.
Oh
He
my
then
God.
sped off and claimed that he was taking her to the hospital. Knowing that her father was violent and was still very angry when he left, she feared he had no plans of taking her to get proper medical treatment, but instead he wanted her alone so that
Yeah,
he
what
could
a real-
unleash his full rage.
What a full piece
Going
of
back
shit.
to Mary and Ray, when they arrived at the police station and reported on what they saw, authorities quickly departed for the schoolhouse, while others were simultaneously searching for Dennis and Marilyn. When police arrived at the schoolhouse, they found the sheet still stuffed inside of the animal hole, and from there, a large section of the area was sealed off. From the initial investigation, police were able to locate tire tracks that would later be identified as belonging to Dennis's van, and the blood samples that they acquired were no doubt from Marilyn, but they needed to be properly tested before issuing a definitive answer. Dennis at this time was still nowhere to be found, but many who knew him were aware that he was a very controlling person and that he didn't want the divorce, but
Man, so he's just a real piece of shit. He's a violent, controlling, manipulative piece of shit.
many thought that he would never be capable
The
of doing
Thorns
an
here.
act as evil
The Thorns here really did a service going back and trying to find that stuff for him.
as this. Throughout the prior year, Dennis and his then wife Marilyn had been together for just over
Bro, he just looks like a nefarious dude.
18 years and had, from what many thought, to have a loving marriage and happy family. However,
Does not.
as it is often the case with many instances of crimes like this, what is shown on the outside is a far cry from how things actually are behind closed doors. Marilyn had been telling her close friends that she was unhappy in the marriage, and while Dennis was not physically violent, at least he hadn't been at that time, he was very much a
It's always a build-up with these things, where violent things in general, right? They don't start that violent. They like work up to it.
controlling person who essentially had the final say on any major or minor decision. Surprisingly, given what happened at the start of this video, Dennis was not very combative about the divorce. It was very apparent that he didn't want it to happen, but he never fought Marilyn on it. Dennis was reported to have tried to save the marriage, but by then Marilyn was long since past the point of wanting to fix it. Dennis agreed to give her primary custody of the kids and even gave her most of the property. Many who have read this case, though, think that this could have just been a last-ditch effort at trying to save his marriage.
I mean, it could be, but it doesn't excuse what he did.
After the divorce was finalized, Dennis
Creepy,
did
man.
stay in frequent contact with his family and was often seen at the home, albeit from the garage that he used as an office. Even then, though, his controlling demeanor was still very much intact, and he was still attempting to have a say in Marilyn's life. Shortly before the event that took place on Easter Sunday, there was an instance where Marilyn arrived home to find Dennis sitting in the living room.
Fucking shit,
Frightened
man. What
by
an
this,
asshole.
she demanded that he leave. After he
Please.
left, Marilyn reportedly
Well, obviously he didn't leave, but
checked all of the locks in the house and the windows. The reason it scared her so much was that she had since changed the locks on the house, and Dennis didn't have a key. While there was never a concrete answer given to this, as Dennis never told her how he got inside of the house, it made the already tense relationship between the former couple that much worse. A few days before Easter Sunday, a coworker of Dennis later told police that he had mentioned to her that he was incredibly depressed and was considering killing Marilyn and then taking his own life.
wow, that raised no red flags at all, huh?
This obviously was a serious concern, but no report was made about it prior to the assault that took place a few days later, which leads us to the events of Easter Sunday. On that afternoon, shortly before Ray and Marie encountered Dennis at the schoolhouse, Dennis was arriving at the house Marilyn and the kids stayed at. While there, one of the kids told Dennis that he didn't want to leave with him. This led to the others all telling him that they didn't want to spend time with him today. It was at this moment that Dennis snapped. He began screaming at the kids, and then Marilyn got in the middle of it and was telling Dennis to not speak to them like that. Dennis accused Marilyn of turning the kids against him, and after more yelling, Dennis pushed Marilyn down the stairs and began attacking her. The kids watched on in horror before Jennifer ran out of the house and to the neighbors for help. During this time, Dennis took the now barely conscious and bloody Marilyn to his van. He told Jennifer that he was taking her to the emergency room, and the rest all circles back around to the start of this story.
Man, it's so heartbreaking, you know? It's so heartbreaking.
However, when Ray and Marie had their encounter with Dennis, he was alone, and there was no sign of Marilyn. Could Dennis have truly taken her to the hospital and then fled, trying to hide the fact that he hurt his ex-wife? Unfortunately,
Could have. But I guess
that wasn't the case, as the following day, as police continued their search of the area around the schoolhouse, they found the body of Marilyn, and she was found with a gunshot wound to the back of her head.
Man.
A manhunt was increased for finding Dennis Depew, but nothing could be found of him. There had been a few reports of his van being spotted speeding down various roads, and for a short time, there actually was somewhat of an urban or local legend surrounding him, taking on an almost boogeyman type of tale. Stories that at night, people would hear a rumbling van speeding in the distant night.
And then Jeepers Creepers starts playing the radio.
What added to this story was that in the days following the crime, Dennis was corresponding to both his friends and his family. He had written nearly 20 letters in total, all postmarked from the eastern United States. They consisted of words from a bitter and selfish man, where he blamed Marilyn for what happened and that she had ruined his life. One of those letters went as follows.
Like, people never want to take accountability for what they're responsible for, you know? That's so sad.
Marilyn had many opportunities to treat me fairly during the divorce, and she chose to string it out, trick me, lie to me, and when you lose your wife, children, and home, there's not much left. I was too old to start over. Over the course of the next 3 months, more letters would arrive at the doorsteps and mailboxes of family members of Dennis, mostly having the same tune that he was not to blame, and if anyone was put in his situation, then they would have done the exact same. He also, for added measure, included Bible verses, perhaps to make himself look more likable and friendly. In March of 1991, barely any
1991, Jesus Christ. I keep thinking this is older than it is.
Progress had been made on the case. Dennis had virtually disappeared, and the 1-year anniversary of the crime that took place on Easter Sunday in Michigan was approaching. Around this time, the television show Unsolved Mysteries had aired a new episode that included what happened to Marilyn in hopes of getting more attention on the case. The nationwide show reached the screens of homes all over the country, and one of those TV screens was over 1,000 miles away in Dallas, Texas, where a man by the name of Hank saw the episode. As it was airing,
damn, this guy got all the way to Texas.
Hank's girlfriend Mary arrived home. She noticed that her boyfriend appeared nervous and somewhat frantic. He told her that his mother was sick and that he needed to go see her. He distracted her so that she wouldn't sit in the living room and see what was playing on the screen. Hank then quickly packed a bag and left, getting into his green 1984 van and speeding off. Hank, otherwise known as Dennis Depew, just realized that he needed to get out of the area and fast, as he knew someone would have recognized him. And he was exactly right, as one of Mary's friends was also watching the episode and immediately called the police.
Can you believe that? Can you believe that? He was like, oh, I'm too old to start over, blah, blah, blah. He was able to find her girlfriend.
To report on what she knew. Before Mary knew it, Hank was gone, and he had left in such a hurry that she didn't know what to make of anything. When she offered to go with him to visit his mother, he was dismissive and made it seem like it wasn't as urgent as it was. Yet when she questioned why he needed to leave that late at night, he changed the subject. Before she knew it, Hank, or Dennis, was gone. And before she could fully process what was happening, the police were knocking on her door.
God damn
She was
it.
informed
Dude, that would have been like a shock for that young lady, dude. She dodged a bullet. Maybe literally. Maybe literally.
from detectives that her boyfriend was actually a wanted murderer and had killed his wife the previous year.
Jeez.
There is little doubt that Mary felt both confused and sick.
Terrified.
It's something that we all hear about in movies and crime novels, after all, that someone we know has a completely different identity. Yet when
I think we all have a different identity sometimes, right? There's the one that we show to people, the one that our close friends know, and then the one that's up here, you know? Three. We got three.
Mary was faced with this, she didn't know what to believe. Everything culminated to police showing her a picture of Dennis.
Hey, man. Like and subscribe if you... No, I'm just kidding. Like and subscribe, though.
And
Man,
to
this is
her
crazy.
shock, she
Hey, Aaron. So, I just realized the Jeepers Creepers movie, I just found out, was based on a real murder.
So
And it wasn't even old.
This is gonna blow your mind.
It was in the 90s.
Never seen it.
Weird. That was one of the first horror movies that actually got me a little bit.
It got you what?
Creeped out a little bit. But they made him a monster. Or, oh, he is a monster, but you know what I mean. They made him a monster.
There was like a 2005 Boogeyman movie that terrified me. It like scarred me for a while. I couldn't go to the bathroom alone outside.
Dang.
was
got
able
you
to
with that one.
confirm that it was him.
Oh,
Within a
Jesus.
matter of hours, Dennis was located, and a high-speed chase began. For more than 30 minutes, Dennis attempted fleeing from the police and took several back roads that led to major highways. It was even reported that he attempted running cars off of the road in an attempt to create some distance from the police behind him. Realizing this was not going to end smoothly, police gave him some distance and started firing at his back wheels. Dennis attempted to swerve to evade this, but it was in vain as suddenly one of the tires on the van exploded.
Fucking kill, man. The worst that happens is you shoot a murderer.
Then, seconds later, another tire was shot out. The police had shot out the rear tires of the van, and shortly after
Damn,
the
good
van
shots.
came to a stop, and realizing that it was all over, instead of surrendering and facing life in
Killed
jail,
himself, I bet.
instead of having to look into the eyes of his children and admit that he took their mother away from them, instead of having to deal with all of the judgment that he absolutely deserved, instead of doing any of that, Dennis decided
get
to
it.
have a shootout with the police.
Oh,
As officers surrounded his car,
Little bit
shots
better.
began to erupt from the windshield of Dennis's car. Officers returned fire, and as quickly as it started, it was over, with Dennis ultimately turning the gun on himself. The story of Dennis DePue ended there, and many have noted that he went out how he wanted, which is morbidly mirroring to how he was in life, and how he wanted so badly to control his family and everyone around him. And in the end, he decided how it was all going to end.
well, shit, man. Now we know about another piece of shit named Dennis DePue. Or DePue or whatever. Man, well, shit. That's that. That's that. It's so over and underwhelming how there are these monsters out there, you know? And they look like everyday people, like your loving neighbors and stuff like that. And then behind closed doors, there's absolute monsters out there. I think it's a miracle that any of us end up trusting or finding anyone, you know? But that's it for this one. Hope you guys have a good night. Bye bye.